morning, members, administration. Good morning. We continue with our subcommittee on 4 pieces of ESA relating to regulation of ride-hailing services meeting. Well, according to 83A, if there is direct or indirect pecuniary interest, then please declare interest before speaking. At the end of the last meeting, we have already scrutinized to section 15, and so we're going to begin from 16 today. I'd like to remind members that we had some follow-up questions for the administration last time, and they said that they would provide us with a written response. We now move on, and I would like to invite Ms. Kwok. Now we are on 16, which is that there must be go through a e-platform, including the effective date and also the name and also all the other particulars. A question. Mr. Chen Siu-Hong. Thank you. I'll just like to clarify, because when you look at 16, that it must be on the form and content of ride-hailing vehicle permits. Does it mean that there's already a similar system that you can actually register online in the future? Commissioner. Thank you. We are setting up the back-end system, and there would be a website for applicants. We would maintain a website for these vehicle permits. So we know that there is actually there's a system that has been upgraded that can use IM Smart to actually have the paper form switch to a e-platform. Am I correct? Well, yes, in all the major systems, then of course there would be many subsystems under it, but then we're talking about one main system. So you're going to set this up later. Applicants can apply online, and then within the vehicle permit, you would actually see a electronic record of this permit. Well, yes, so you'll be able to see this information online, because this should all be connected. Am I correct? Yes, I also have a bit of follow-up. The vehicle must show its registration mark and the chassis number. Would the color and also the model of the car also need to be shown?
Deputy Director, Deputy Commissioner, Mr. Kwok, Ms. Kwok, we'll look into this, says the Deputy Commissioner. Let's continue. Now we are on Section 17. It's about the validity period. The last day should not be later than the expiry date of the car license. So this, because the permit is issued on the basis that there is a valid license for the vehicle. So we have to align the two expiry days. 17.1. The permit would be valid for the period indicated as such. Well, it depends on the validity period for the the private car's license. Because a vehicle license can be renewed for either 4 months or 12 months. All right, let's continue. We're now on Section 18 of the regulation. It's about the renewal arrangement. According to this section, renewal application should be submitted in the specified form and should be submitted 1 month of not later than 4 months before the expiry. This is the same as those requirements for vehicle license. For example, the applicant must be the registered owner, and he has insured the vehicle, etc. So, to have this ride-hailing service properly regulated, the commissioner will be able to regulate how the renewal is to be processed. And this is not a statutory requirement as such. And when the permit is first issued, conditions can be applied. Here, the same will be applied. And if the commissioner refuses to approve the renewal, grounds must be stated. And also in paragraph 8 of the legal advisor's question, and the question is, what is the specified form to be used? And would the form require the applicant to submit information as contained in the legislation? Well, it would be in the form of using a specified form, and such as an e-form submitted on the internet. And the commissioner can specify the details and information to be submitted by the applicant. Mr. Zhao Xiuchong, I have a question on the policy side. If during the last validity period, for some reason, the applicant cannot fulfill the lowest operational requirement, for example, the lowest required mileage, and the vehicle was in repair for, say, 9 months, or the driver was hospitalized due to some injury. And so when the application is submitted, can there be some compassionate consideration, exercising the commissioner's discretion? According to bracket 3, bracket D, it seems to provide or contain a very strict requirement, and that is the mileage. The operational mileage must fulfill the stipulated requirement. It seems that here the commissioner doesn't have any discretion. So I would like to know what can be done in the case I have just referred to. Last time when we discussed the policy, there were concerns that we should handle a situation whereby a successful applicant is not really putting the vehicle into service. And the member here is concerned that for some reason, the applicant or the permit holder cannot fulfill the minimum operational requirement. We'll look into how and when the commissioner can exercise discretion to take into consideration the vehicle owner's circumstances. We need to strike a balance here. On the one hand, we need to have a clear stipulation of the licensing requirements and conditions. We have stipulated these requirements, and the commissioner will, through a Gazette notice, stipulate the the specified journeys or mileage, there can be various ways of to express this. We can state whether how many journeys per month or per year. And we should have some leeway here so that during the validity period of the permit holder, the vehicle owner, they can try to make up for the shortfall in the latter part of the licensing period. We are now considering how this should be formulated to reflect the policy intent and also the so-called discretionary power that I last talked about. We need to be fair, and we need to avoid ambiguities and uncertainties. We are confident that in the coming Gazette notice, and we will be able to provide a more detailed response on our thinking after this meeting. Understand the Secretary's points. Let me repeat. Under some circumstances, the driver may have no choice. For example, the vehicle has broken down or he has fallen sick. And if the renewal is denied, his livelihood will be affected. I'm grateful for the promise of the Secretary to consider some discretionary power. My example is very simple. The car has broken down for, say, 9 months, or hospital. The vehicle owner has been hospitalized for some months. Can something be done about that? Or are you going to deal with such cases later? Or before we proceed to the Gazette stage, we will seriously consider such situations. And we would specify the requirements in very clear terms to the applicant. I hope my response will be regarded as positive by the member. Well, if you don't have the details, and if you specify the way the conditions are to be framed, and if it's not very general in nature, you may not be able to cater for the situation I've just quoted. If through the Gazette notice, the conditions for renewal are too generous. For example, you refer to the journey per day or per month, and you may say that two journeys per day will be sufficient. I don't think the Gazette notice can contain such detail to cater for a situation where the vehicle has broken down. I just don't know how this can be done through the Gazette notice. The Secretary has promised us to consider such cases, but what if you haven't been able to come up with a solution? I think you're talking about the power of the Commissioner. We would set out all the details after the meeting for the members' reference. I would just one last word. If you cannot really come up with a good solution, would you consider moving some amendments to the regulation? Well, we are imposing a quota on the total number of license or permit to be issued. We hope that there will be a guarantee at the very start on the operation capacity of these vehicles. We'll seriously consider the concerns expressed by the member, and we'll do our very best to strike a balance.
我哋
Please give us a written response later on how you can address this issue. Our legal advisor would also have follow-up. Legal advisor. Thank you, Chairman. It's also on the designated number of journeys. I'd like to refer you to 18(3)(G) on the renewal of ride-hailing vehicle permits. The Commissioner has to make sure that the subject private car has, during the relevant period, completed at least a specified number of journeys. And Section 18(9) said that the Commissioner may specify a number or a method of calculating a number. And 18(10) stipulates that this notice is not a subsidiary legislation, which means that it does not need to go through the LegCo and no amendments would be made. I'd just like to refer members to this notice and whether members agree to this legislative arrangement. You may invite the administration to explain why this will not be considered subsidiary legislation. Well, this notice is not subsidiary legislation, which means that the Commissioner just needs to make a notice on the specification of the number of journeys. We have noted this point. Next question, Mr. Chen Siu-Hong. Thank you, Chairman. On Section 18, I have 2 points I'd like to raise. The first one has already been raised by the legal advisor, which I'd like to follow up. But let me first ask you another question on third-party insurance, which is under F. According to my understanding, many ride-hailing platforms purchase a master policy for their drivers, and F here just points out that there is in force a policy of insurance or security in respect of third-party risk. Does that mean that the vehicle owner with his or her own insurance would also need to purchase another insurance to be used for ride-hailing services? The second question is one that the legal advisor has raised. Mr. Chow Siu-Chong was concerned about the specified number of journeys and on special circumstances. Under subsection 9, it says that the Commissioner can, by notice, publish a specified number. There may be some conflicts arising from this, so I believe that the LegCo needs to play a role in it. I don't understand why this has been taken out of subsidiary legislation. To address Mr. Chow Siu-Chong's concern, when parts of the regulation empowers the Commissioner on certain points, then there is a very high level of power because there can be many exemptions and waivers. I don't see specified numbers under the ride-hailing services. I don't understand why we cannot make this consistent. Well, I don't want to see too much power by the Commissioner or by the administration, as it would be seen as being impartial, as that would not be considered as impartial. There are many exemptions and waivers. I want the administration to clarify some of these issues. Mr. Ip. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your question. First of all, on the insurance. In the last few meetings on insurance arrangements, we have made some discussions. And in our regulation, we have maintained a flexibility. As long as the applicants fulfill 272, then it will be considered as active insurance. We have received many comments on the arrangements. And as we said last time, we hope to provide a comprehensive protection for our passengers. Would we be able to try to make sure that we plug all the loopholes and gray areas to make things clear? We introduced at our last meeting that we have considered different approaches. When the car owner purchases a third-party insurance, we see that there is an advantage that when it is through the same insurance company, it can still insure it or provide protection for different purposes. Sometimes it would provide protection for the driver for private purposes and also for ride-hailing services. And we believe that when the vehicle is being operated for different purposes, we would still know which part of the insurance would cover that. And because if we make it too different, then it may be very complicated to carry out. So in future, we will continue to keep our flexibility, and we will make sure that we will make the insurance protection clear. Chairman, I have a follow-up on this question. It's very clear in the regulation that it is similar to Chapter 314, that when you have effective insurance, that would be enough. But then I understand what Mr. Ip said. We may foresee that some insurance companies may see a different insurance companies when you need to file a claim, and the situation may become unclear. But then I don't understand why you need to impose additional conditions in purchasing insurance. Where do you see that? The administration does not empower the insurance companies to do that. Do you have any follow-up on that? Thank you, Mr. Chen. We have considered different comments, and we see that some may be purchased by the ride-hailing platform and some insurance purchased by the vehicle owner. We want to provide the maximum protection for the passengers. Therefore, we have considered different scenarios and believe that the vehicle owner purchasing his or her own protection would be better. We would, of course, come up with a clear requirement in the application process. I'm sorry, Chairman. At this stage, the regulation should be clear and easy to execute. The administration must make it clear to applicants what is needed. I welcome flexibility, but then you can't just impose additional conditions on the day of the application. And there is no discretion given to the administration to impose such conditions. I am just worried that we're not giving a good impression and at the same time will be difficult to execute. I just want the administration to go back and think through it thoroughly. Sometimes when we scrutinize the clauses, we see unclear issues, but then we can just explain it and then smooth it out. Maybe you can also issue some sort of guidance or make it more clear so that you wouldn't be adding in additional conditions at a later date. Thank you. We would continue to listen to members' comments during the scrutiny, consolidate all the comments, and then tell members our decision. On the point on the commissioner specifying the number of journeys by a notice, I can speak more on that. We have considered it from different perspectives. We have looked at the total number of permits that we are going to cap at and considered all the different perspectives. We believe that a subsidiary legislation through negative vetting can reflect the consensus we have reached through discussions. There are also operational considerations or arrangements. For example, we hope that the ride-hailing service drivers could support us in the future operations so that we'll be able to provide better services to our passengers, and that needs flexibility and plans that could be easy to be changed. We have considered different policies and operational measures, and we believe that it is best that we publish a notice instead of making it subsidiary legislation. Therefore, after considering the policies and also what we want to achieve, we have decided to not make this subsidiary legislation. Chairman, I understand the Secretary's point of view, but then we're talking about the calculation of the number of journeys. It may lead to many different or give rise to arguments, because I do not see any flexibility or a discretion on the end of the commissioner. You actually are going around the LegCo. I am sure that you would go through proper consultation, but then with negative vetting, I believe that we should still consider it thoroughly, as it would be more ideal. I respect the Secretary's view, but even with negative vetting, I don't believe that there will be too much of a difference on time concern, and you should take or go through a better process before you execute it.
好清晰嘅。
I think it's very clear now. Members would like the Commissioner to enjoy certain discretionary powers to deal with some scenarios. Well, these questions may not need to be vetted by this Council, again, by the form of a piece of subsidiary legislation. Well, we have done this before. I hope you can provide a response in writing to members' questions and concerns. Next, we have Mr. Lothair Lam. We're not hearing you. The first question is the same as the one raised by Mr. Chen Xiu-hong and Mr. Thomas Sir, and that is the discretionary power of the Commissioner. The application for renewal should not be submitted later than a month before expiry of the permit. Well, but what if the applicant is sick during that period? Can some discretionary power be exercised to dispense with that requirement? And also, the Commissioner may impose additional conditions as necessary. What are the circumstances that would require the Commissioner to do so? And how do you ensure compliance? Well, the regulation do provide some leeway, and that is the application should be submitted not before 4 months before expiry, but no later than a month before expiry. I believe normally the applicant will have sufficient time to do this. For example, arranging their own trips in such a way that they can submit the application in good time. When we consider the amendments to the principal legislation, and that is when the Commissioner issued the certificate, some conditions can be imposed. For example, the permit holder must keep the vehicle in good repair, and that will be an example. And then here, 16(6) is about the continuation of such conditions upon renewal. As that is to say, normally the same conditions will be imposed upon renewal. So we have talked about quantitative requirements, etc. Members may not need to ask questions that have already been asked, because we are going to get a written response to all questions. Mr. Thomas So, the number of journeys, that's my concern. The administration would like to deal with this through administrative means. But I think it would be better to inform the public in clear terms and what are the conditions that the Commissioner may consider when considering the application, because that would affect the demand side of the market. When the Commissioner designate the number of journeys, you should tell us the consideration of stipulating the number concerned, because the applicant does have a right to seek a review. And even if it's a judicial review case, the court will have to consider the reasons behind the commissioner's consideration. So that's point number one. Secondly, this will be in the form of a Gazette notice. And the commissioner last time said the number will be adjusted in a dynamic way. But what about the frequency of such changes? Once a month, once a year, or what? We will set out very clearly all the considerations that we would take up when we consider applications. And we want to make sure that the commissioner will be able to invite applications based on the set quota. We will monitor the data, the demand of the traveling public, as well as the views of the service sector. We would afford ample time for the trade to understand all these, and also how we are going to process the applications and issue the permits. We would provide all the necessary information. Have you not decided on how often you do this? And that is, the commissioner may by notice published in the Gazette specify a number. Are you going to do this once a year, or you haven't made up your mind yet? In bracket 9, it is in respect of each individual vehicle in the licensing period, the minimum number of journeys that are provided. We specify a number. And we also talk about inviting applications based on the quota. There will be a notice, public notice, to inform the public on when applications should be submitted. Mr. Agent Ho, through the questions and answers, and many of my questions have been clarified and answered. I hope for renewal and the conditions for renewal, as Mr. So has asked, how often are you going to regularly update the number? Because the individual permit holders may have their different expiry dates. So at different times, the conditions for renewal may be different for different permit holders. So I hope you can come up with a formula which would cater for the driving habits of different vehicle owners. So you should have more than one formula. For example, the number of hours, the number of journeys, and you can you should allow the conditions to be fulfilled. And people may do something extra to fulfill one of the conditions. And sometimes nearer the time the permit expires. So I hope that the formula will be more more particular in nature. For example, not as simple as 10 journeys per month. I hope you can cover different situations, as Mr. Chow Siu Chung and the other member has said, so that we can avoid confusions in the future. Thank you, Mr. Agent Ho, for your suggestions. We'll give your views careful consideration and would provide a response to that question. Mr. Lam Wai Kwong, I agree with the other members that in respect of the conditions for renewal, you should in good time publish the information for the applicants. I don't know whether the ultimate formula may be very complicated. You may calculate the number of hours or the number of journeys. So I hope you can provide some easy to use calculations applications for applicants to understand whether they are eligible by inputting some basic information. The Commissioner may impose suitable conditions on the applications, on the renewal of the application. Can you tell us more specific information? Are they similar to those in the regulations, or the Commissioner can impose some other conditions? Is there a range as to the kind of conditions that may be imposed? Well, I think the Commissioner has responded to a previous similar question. Yes, in answering the questions of another member, we said that when the Commissioner issues a permit or a license, conditions can be imposed. When we amended the principal legislation, we already included the power to impose conditions. For example, as I've said, the Commissioner may require the owner to fulfill conditions that the vehicle is properly maintained. That may become one of the conditions for the permit. If this condition is not fulfilled, if there's a breach, or we can suspend or revoke the permit as appropriate. And here in section 18, we think that when a renewal application is renewed, similar conditions will be imposed. For example, the one on the maintenance, proper maintenance of vehicles. Are you going to publish the conditions on the website, etc.? We have to consider fairness. If this is imposed on the permit holder, of course, he will be able to understand the conditions by reading the information on the permit. And for transparencies, we would be able to publish the general conditions that may be imposed on the website of the department. Mr. Chan Pui Leung.
Let's take a look at 18.3F, and it is clearly stipulated that in accordance with Cap 272, then there must be a policy of insurance or security in respect of third-party risk, which means that for anyone using a vehicle, then that person must be covered by a third-party risk. Well, at the moment, the vehicle owner will need to purchase insurance. We know there's another possibility that the ride-hailing service platform could also purchase insurance on the vehicle owner's behalf. Would that insurance be actually consistent with the one that is under Cap 272? Mr. Ip, please. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your question. Another member has also asked a similar question. We do offer a flexibility. As long as the vehicle that comes for renewal and as long as it complies with an insurance under Cap 272, then it would be eligible for renewal. We know that the platform could purchase insurance and the vehicle owner could also purchase his own insurance to comply with Cap 272. In our consideration, we hope that there wouldn't be any gray areas in claims. Therefore, a more feasible way would be requesting the vehicle owner to purchase third-party insurance. If that is bought also under the same insurance company, then the coverage may actually be stronger because the gray area would then be reduced to a minimum and there would be more clarity in claims. I understand that. I just want to make clear the vehicle user. We are going through a ride-hailing platform and not referring to a vehicle user or driver. What we need to actually fulfill or meet certain regulations in the future. Well, thank you for your question. The insurance company will just need to provide relevant insurance documents to cover that. Mr. Chris, I would like to understand more about 18(3)(d) that the subject private car must be manufactured less than 12 years before the date of the application. Let's say the private car was manufactured 11.5 years ago. And that means this car could also be eligible for renewal. Would the renewal be for only 6 months or 1 year? Does it mean that the car needs to be replaced when it meets the 12-year mark? Thank you for your question. We would actually work in consistency with the year of manufacture. We would look at the permit of when the car expires. Let's say the car's permit is for another year. So even if it was manufactured for more than 12 years, then you would still offer it 1 year. How about for renewal? Well, we would look at the renewal and also the date. If it does not meet the 12-year mark, then it will not be renewed. If there are no other questions on this section, then we'll look forward to written responses by the administration. We can move on. Now moving on to section 19 on the validity period of renewed ride-hailing vehicle permits. So there would actually be seamless transition between the two permits. And it ends on a day or not later than the expiry date of the vehicle license of the subject private car. And this ride-hailing vehicle permit could be renewed for more than one time but cannot be renewed for more than 5 years in total. All right, Section 20. This states the change of particulars of holders of ride-hailing vehicle permits. If there is any change to the name, address, e-contact means, or identity document of the holder of a ride-hailing vehicle permit, then the holder must, within 72 hours of the change, notify the Commissioner in writing of the change. And if a person contravenes it, then they will be committed an offense and is liable on conviction to a fine at level 1. And this person must provide within 40 days after the date on which the requirement is made any information or document that the Commissioner may reasonably require as proof of the change. Mr. Chan Siu-Hong. Thank you, Chairman. Section 20, Subsection 1. If there are changes of particulars of the holders of ride-hailing vehicle permits, then the holder must notify the Commissioner in writing of the change. Well, we are using e-permits nowadays. Why can't the changes be submitted online? And now you already have a computer system in place. Why can't this change be made electronically instead of notifying the Commissioner in writing of the change? Well, I understand that some people may prefer using writing or in written form, but then you can still submit it electronically. I don't quite understand why you are still staying at the stage of notifying the Commissioner in writing of change. Commissioner, thank you, Mr. Chen, for your comment. We, of course, want to move forward and to use more electronic means. This is actually inconsistent with other road traffic regulations. When we are fully able to update particulars electronically, then we will be able to make the change. But at the moment, we just want to keep it consistent to other regulations. Chairman, last year, I believe, we approved or passed many regulations on electronic means. The administration understands that during the transition period, some people may still prefer to use writing. And so there is always an additional line saying that it could be if that the holders can use writing. But I don't know when you'll be able to update this in the future. I think this is actually too old school. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Chan, for your comment. Well, we would go back and look through it. We have already raised this issue in our last meeting. Mr. Lam Wai Kong. Thank you, Chairman. 20(1), we see that the holder of ride-hailing vehicle permits can make changes to the name, address, or ID. Does it mean that after I receive the license, can I actually change it to another person? Or if I'm not a ride-hailing vehicle service provider, can I actually use my permit, or can I actually transfer my permit to another person since I can make changes to particulars? Mr. Yip, thank you. Thank you for your question. We are talking about making changes to the personal particulars of the holder of the vehicle permit. So if there is any change to be made to the personal particular of the person, then they need to notify the commissioner. Last year, when we amended the main legislation, we have made it very clear under 52B that this vehicle permit could not be transferred. So any changes made would only be changes of the personal particulars of the holder. Well, let's say I, Lam Wai Kong, I cannot transfer this to a person of a different ID number. Oh, yes. Secretary, yes. We have made it clear that any changes of particulars to that holder, even though this include address, e-contact means, changes could maybe or sometimes be changed, and we are just covering that. So it would just be changes made to the personal particulars of the holder, and it could not be transferred to another person. Thank you. Mr. Kusip, thank you. I'll also have a question on 20(1). If the name, address, e-contact means have been changed, then the holder must notify the commissioner in writing of the change within 72 of the change, and within 14 days, any information or document that the commissioner may reasonably require as proof of the change. When you're talking about address, are you talking about the communication address or the correspondence address? Well, can I really provide within 14 days a document that could be a proof of the change? Is that too tight? For the e-contact means, how do you actually provide this change? Secretary. Thank you. Well, the holder has to notify the commissioner within 72 hours of the change under 21 of changes of particulars, and within 14 days provide information or document that may be required as proof of the change. This is actually same with a vehicle driver wanting to change his or her particulars. A change of address may require a document as proof. We believe that it is already a reasonable time period of 14 days. All right, let's move on to section 21 on variation of subject private cars or ride-hailing vehicle permits. The holder wanting to replace the original private car may do that on application, and the application must meet certain requirements. That the substitute private car needs also to be manufactured less than 12 years, and there's already a vehicle permit, and a $1,500 would be charged as fee. If the expiry date is earlier than the new date, then actually the validity period of the permit is to be recorded as being varied such that the expiry date of the vehicle license becomes the last day of the period. Well, some members have asked whether the original car could be sold before the substitute car becomes a replacement. We have considered that and have set a cap to ensure that all vehicles could be used if the holder does not have a vehicle permit. then that license would be ineffective. For a permit holder who wants to replace his car, then that person could first make changes to the particulars before doing the replacement.
Mr. Chen Xiu-Hong. Thank you, Chairman. My question is about 21(3)(G). It says, if a hire car permit is enforced in respect of the substitute private car, the applicant has given written consent that the hire car permit is to be cancelled on the variation of the ride-hailing vehicle permit. And that is to say, one cannot hold two permits at the same time. That is a hire car permit and ride-hailing service permit. What is the policy intent? A hire car permit doesn't mean that you have business every day. So why can't someone hold two permits at the same time? When we scrutinize the amendments to the principal legislation, we stated that the policy intent on the regulation of ride-hailing platform vehicles and car owners, and that is the due process requirement. There are a number of requirements to be met, and we set out very clearly if someone who applies for his private car to be used as a ride-hailing service vehicle, there are certain requirements pertaining to the ride-hailing service policy. I remember at the transport panel meeting, some members did raise whether we could rely on the existing hire car permit system. Members may recall that according to the policy on hire car permit, some vehicles may have such a permit for hotel business operations or for the tourism purposes. And there are quotas or different quotas for different operations. And when we subsumed the ride-hailing service under the overarching policy, we said we would be conducting a review in the future on all these services, because we are talking about different purposes, different activities that will be, or operations that will be covered by different permits. So that would be a separate exercise, and that would clearly reflect our policy intent. Of course, Mr. Chen is correct that from the public's perspective, we would like to see that the operation capacity of vehicles should be maximized. Here, when we consider how the ride-hailing service is to be regulated, well, we were saying that the hire car permit system is subject to another exercise of review. We don't want to cause confusion here. Well, I do understand you, Madam Secretary. So maybe after the regulation is implemented, and you may review the the system sometime later as to whether we should allow someone to hold a hire car permit and a ride-hailing service permit at the same time. I understand that. If a taxi owner, also a driver, who wants to apply for a ride-hailing service permit, for example, it's a green taxi, its business area is restricted, and that if it serves as a ride-hailing vehicle, it can serve everywhere. So my question is, if a green taxi owner gets a ride-hailing permit, will he be required to surrender the taxi license first? Well, we keep an open mind on how to maximize or how to improve the point-to-point service provided by our taxi fleets. We hope that in the future we can make the best use of the operation capacity, and that there will be a review. It will be a task for the coming months, and we will communicate with the taxi trade, and there will be a lot of opportunities in the future to explore the business prospect of taxi service. My question is, if a green taxi driver and owner applies for a ride-hailing permit, would you ask him to surrender the green taxi license, or would you deny his application for a ride-hailing permit? I don't want to rush into a concrete answer here. I think I should set out our response in greater detail in our written response. The overall framework is for private cars to be used as a ride-hailing vehicles, and we're not trying to cover taxis. So you're saying that the green taxi license must be surrendered, and the vehicle becomes a private car before he can apply for a ride-hailing permit. That's not very realistic, isn't it? Because a lot of modification will require before the taxi owner can do this. I think we should concentrate on the regulation of ride-hailing service here. If they have questions, they can tell us. I think we can have ample opportunities to communicate. For the valid hire car permits, we're talking about just a few thousand of them for specified purposes. Or passenger vehicles, service vehicles are covered by the hire car permit. Well, here the members' understanding is correct. We're talking about 1,000 or so vehicles with a hire car permit. So you're talking about those allowed for specific purposes such as hotel service. So here, by a hire car permit, you are talking about the specified vehicles, 1,000 or so of them, not the generic permit vehicles, permit holders. So that's confirmed? Yeah. Arising from the question asked by Mr. Lam, I would like to refer to a scenario for some detailed elaboration. If we use the ride-hailing platform for taxi service, well, you can either pay according to the meter or you can have a fixed sum to be paid. And for the green taxi, they can only serve NT. And they cannot go beyond the NT district. But for ride-hailing service, it can be at a fixed fare. If this is done through the ride-hailing platform and service arranged through a platform, can they go beyond the NT district in offering such service? Mr. Kwok, we have a clear answer for that question. I will have to repeat myself. I think we should concentrate on the ride-hailing, the regulation of ride-hailing service. As for the situation of particular taxi service, we have got very specific answers, but I think we should concentrate on the regulation here in regard to ride-hailing service. We do have very good communication channels with the taxi trade. And we now move on to Regulation Section 22. The Commissioner may, on his or her initiative or on application by the holder, vary a ride-hailing vehicle permit by updating any particular stated in the permit. That is in Section 16. Section 23. A police officer or some officers authorized by the Commissioner may require any person in charge of vehicle to show the permit. If someone without reasonable excuse fails to comply with the requirement, will be liable on conviction to a fine at level 1. And what is the, for the purpose of that particular subsection, a person complies with a requirement under subsection if the person is the right owner or the permit holder. I have no question. I think we should take a break when we finish Section 24 and 25. Mr. Lam Wai Kwong. My understanding is that there will be a heavier fine if they do not use the same permit and the permit owner driver the requirement, and there will be a heavier penalty. The understanding is correct. For the owner driver requirement, there's a level 3 fine to be imposed on conviction, and that is $10,000. But here we're talking about failure to show the permit. That is also an offense. For example, the owner driver requirement is fulfilled, but the permit, he cannot produce the permit for the police officer, and that is in itself is an offense. And the fine is $2,000 on conviction. And if the driver is not the registered owner, then a level 3 fine may be imposed.
So he can also show it by electronic means. Yes. Mr. Lothar Lam. Section 23 states a public policy that a policy officer or a public officer authorized by the commissioner may require the person to show their permit. What do you refer by public officer here? Because some public officers may not be clear of what to do. Would there be guidelines provided to the public officers authorized? Mr. Yip, thank you. This is actually similar to other regulations. Public officer here actually refers to officers working under the Transport Bureau. Thank you. All right, moving on to Section 24. This states when ride-hailing vehicle permits cease to be valid under certain circumstances. When the holder of the vehicle permit can no longer drive, for example, the permit has been suspended or cancelled, then due to the owner-driver requirement, that holder permit would cease to be valid. Or maybe the vehicle no longer holds a permit and there is no vehicle license is in force, then under these circumstances, then the vehicle permit would also cease to be valid. Mr. Thomaso. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to ask about 24 bracket C. You're looking at the holder of the vehicle permit transfers or otherwise parts with the user of or otherwise disposes of the subject private car. Are you referring to temporary or can I allow another person to use my car for 1 day? Does that mean that I'm giving up or transferring or dispose of the subject private car? I don't quite understand on what you mean by dispose. Well, you're referring to having the vehicle permit becoming invalid, which is quite serious. So can you explain this further? Mr. Ip. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. So, for your question. Let me try to explain it further. For Part C, we're referring to, first of all, transfer. The holder may give up the permit. A transfer may be a one-off transfer, that the vehicle has been transferred to someone else. For using the vehicle, then or maybe this person has already given the use of the vehicle to another person. We also use or otherwise disposes of under 24C. So this would also be consistent with Cap 374. If that's the case, I think you should clarify it because you're talking about the long term. You cannot really explain it here under this subsection. Let's say I have mortgaged my vehicle to the bank. Would that be considered as disposed of? Secretary. Thank you, Mr. So, for your comment and for your question. We can provide more details later on. We have considered current legislation to try to cover transfers giving up of the use and disposing of vehicle permits. Mr. So has asked about the other methods because transfer is very clear, but for disposing of, we can let the public know more about what we mean by that. We have heard Mr. Zhou's view, and we will go back and look through this before coming back with a response. Mr. Chris Ip, thank you. With the owner-driver requirement in place, let's say the owner passed away and the vehicle has been transferred to the son. Let's say the son is also an owner-driver. Would he be holding 2 permits in that case? Because the father's permit has also been transferred over to the son. For this extreme case, the vehicle permit would cease to be valid with a transfer. The owner-driver requirement should mean that each owner would have only 1 driver with this requirement. All right, let us move on to Section 25 for suspension of ride-hailing vehicle permits. That if the driving permit of the holder of a vehicle permit is suspended for a period, then the ride-hailing vehicle permit will also be suspended for that period. Mr. Lam Wai Kong, raise your hand so we could turn on the microphone. Thank you. When the driving permit of a holder has been suspended, let's say a taxi driver driving permit has been suspended, then that person would also lose the vehicle permit. A ride-hailing vehicle, if not providing enough journeys, and that person should actually return the quota. What kind of methods would you use to actually distribute the quota to someone else? Let me try to explain it. We have enough flexibility to ensure that the driver could provide enough operational journeys during the validity period. When we find a driver not meeting the number of journeys, we would provide them with a reminder. And the holder may, in the following few months, provide more services. We would then, at the date of renewal after 1 year, determine whether a renewal should be offered. Am I to understand that a review would only be conducted once a year at the renewal date? Let's say the cap is at 10,000. And after a year, some holders of such permits may not be meeting the requirements, and therefore that quota will be given to someone else. The Commissioner has addressed this question. First of all, let me talk about the dynamic analysis. At the beginning of today's meeting, we talked about specifying the number of journeys. We want there to be a minimum of journeys reached, and at the same time to provide a certain level of flexibility for the drivers. At the time of renewal, after 12 months, we would review the drivers to ensure that they can also try to meet the requirements. I remember in the last year, Mr. Lam Wei Kong also asked a similar question to provide such drivers with a reminder that they're not meeting the specified number of trips. We believe this is a very good suggestion, and through the platform and the TPB's system, we would try our best to adopt technology to remind holders of permits to ensure that they are meeting the requirements, and we would continue with a dynamic monitoring. Well, let us now take a 5-minute break and return at 11:31.